Dolby stuff. And so, I was smart a little bit.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to a Thursday edition of Collection Connection, where we're playing that game that's just an excuse to talk about records. Every week, my brother and I, my brother being Plastic Eric, over on the Plastic Soundwave Cult channel, each of us show a record in our collections, and the gimmick, the juice, the hook, is that each album is in some way related to the album previously shown on the other's channel. So that's how we play, and let's get right into it. In Eric's last video, he showed Sinead O'Connor's I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. I have it. Here's my copy right here. Ta-da. First off, we collectively owe Sinead O'Connor an apology for sort of canceling her in the age of, before the age of canceling, with her indictment of the Catholic Church that proved to be entirely correct and a blight upon the world. I don't know that we ever let her off the hook for what we perceived as a slight back in the early 90s. But as far as just the music, the album, I would say that I'm Stretched on Your Grave is a mesmerizing track that juxtaposition, the dichotomy of sort of this old Celtic melody on top of, the funky drummer beat with this just bass. I don't know if it's proto trip hop or what you would call it, but really works. It's dynamite together. And The Last Day of Our Acquaintance, I will throw out as a song that I think is a real keeper. And again, sort of a precursor to someone like Liz Phair, taking aim at sort of the failure of a relationship. It makes me think of sort of the Liz Phair's divorce song, and really laying it without a lot of poetry and just kind of bare language, which really makes it hit home. And of course, Nothing Compares to You was a monster hit. I think it's fine. And I think that her first album, The Lion and the Cobra, was maybe a little bit of a better album overall. I have the two. Even then, I don't really listen to either of them all that often, so it's nice to have a reason to pull one out and give it a go. To make a connection, the song Black Boys on Moped opens with a name check of Margaret Thatcher, who was the British Prime Minister at the time. And she was the Prime Minister, maybe not for the entirety, I meant to look this up, but I'm realizing as I'm talking that I didn't. She may have been the Prime Minister for the entirety of our stay in England, but certainly through the latter part between 78 and 84 when we were in England. She was the Prime Minister, so I have a strong memory of Margaret Thatcher as the head of government there. It is a criticism basically every time her name is brought up in song. It's a criticism. There is, going back to Elvis Costello again, Tramp the Dirt Down from his Spike album, which I mentioned. It's a song I really like, and that is one of the most acidic takedowns of Margaret Thatcher's legacy that you'll ever hear. But another mention of Margaret Thatcher by name is on the 1980 debut from the English Beat called I Just Can't Stop It. In the case of the English Beat, it is Stand Down Margaret, paired up with a song called Wine and Grind on the album. I think it was released in an edited form as a single without Wine and Grind, but Stand Down Margaret is another caustic takedown of Margaret Thatcher and her politics. At the time, England was having a rough go of it there with the coal miner strike and the war in Argentina over the Falkland Islands. So it wasn't in Argentina, in the Falklands with Argentina. But yeah, this is a band known in the US as the English Beat. In the UK, they're just the Beat. So I doctored my album art cover to make it look like the English cover. I took out the word English. And that is because a musician named Paul Collins beat them just nipped them to the punch. I think in 1979, put out an album under the name The Beat. And so, in the same manner that other bands like The Mission had to become The Mission UK, and Suede had to become the London Suede, and Squeeze were initially marketed as UK Squeeze. Here in the US, The Beat in England had to change their name to the English Beat. And we know them fairly commonly here as the English Beat. Ironically, I think that they eclipsed the fame of the Paul Collins version of The Beat, so he ended up calling that combo Paul Collins Beat, I think, to differentiate. In any case, we know them as the English Beat here, even though they're just The Beat. And we're talking about, let's see, Dave Wakeling, Ranking Roger, Andy Cox, David Steele, Saxa, and Everett Morton, maybe. So as two-tone as they seem to be, ready with all the kind of early ska acts like the Specials and the Selector Madness and such, they are not on the two-tone label. They actually created their own label called Go Feet Records, and all of their music is on Go Feet. It only really existed as a label. There was only one other band whose name I was not familiar with, who I'm going to forget in the moment, but it was something with the Ceylons that released material on the Go Feet label. There were a couple one-offs, but mostly it existed to distribute the music of The Beat, the English Beat. I'm sure that, again, in the wash of that kind of, ska-inspired sound, heavy on the heels of the punk outbreak in 1977, I heard a lot of these songs. There are hit songs on I Just Can't Stop It and in the Beat discography, but it really wasn't until they split and Ranking Roger and Dave Wakeling formed General Public as sort of a pseudo supergroup, with members of other prominent bands of the time, and their song Tenderness, that I was really focused in, aware of who they were. And unpopular opinion, hot take, whatever you want to call it, the second General Public album, Hand to Mouth, is probably my favorite album from this sort of collective group of musicians. And this also includes Fine Young Cannibals, that Cox and Steele went on to form with Roland Gift in the aftermath of the Beat breaking up. And I think I had special Beat service for a good while, and it didn't floor me. It doesn't floor me as an album. I'd save it for later on it, but not a ton of stuff that really resonates with me. And it wasn't until much, much later, probably 2000 or so, maybe even later, that I picked up. I think that I could have this wrong in my mind, but I think that the English Beat is one of those bands whose output was hard to come by in a pure form in the U.S. I knew I liked their cover of Smokey Robinson's Tears of a Clown, but that was never on any of their records, unlike the other singles that they issued, which did turn up on the first album here, most notably Mirror in the Bathroom. And I think it was in the movie Grosse Pointe Blank. They're dancing to Mirror in the Bathroom at the high school reunion, one of the songs in the high school reunion scene, that I really kind of felt, the groove of it, and kind of the need to skank to it, do that ska dancing to it, do that mod ska dancing, as they say in Camper Van Beethoven. And after picking it up, the song Best Friend, which was another single, but wasn't one that I was very familiar with, I really zeroed in on that as a winner. And so that really opened it up. And I would say now, in retrospect, having bought all of the Beats' 3 albums from their initial period, I think they have put out new music. They have reconvened at various times, and I don't really know all of the ins and outs, but I know that Dave Wakeling and Ranking Roger fell out and would tour separately. under this English Beat moniker, doing their own thing. I think they came together, but I know that there's been more recent material, but it was 3 albums initially. Just Can't Stop It, then What Happened, and Special Beat Service. And I have all 3 of those. I would say this is the champion right here. This is my favorite. And it's a great record. I can't say that I knew it legit from the time that it was released. It was definitely, even though I was in a prime position, I was not at a prime age to appreciate it. But living in England in 1980 when it came out, sure, I had some exposure to it, but no particular propensity to listen to it at that time. And it wasn't until a couple of decades later that I almost reluctantly went back to it, but hit with a couple of great classic singles, Mirror in the Bathroom, Best Friend, and some weird things like Can't Get Used to Loving You is an Andy Williams cover. Some of these are covers on here from sources that you wouldn't necessarily guess. But I'm once again doing that thing where I start a sentence and a thought and totally lose my train of thought halfway through, so I don't end up finishing the sentence that I started. I guess what I was trying to say is that it took me a couple of decades, even though I was right there when it happened, it took me a couple of decades to latch onto it and appreciate it. But I do appreciate it now. And my wife, when I was playing this over the house speakers a couple of days ago. She was reminiscing about how she used to play this album while she was getting ready for school in the morning in the 80s. And so she enjoyed the playthrough that I gave it. And yeah, so did I. So I will throw that 1980, the English Beat, I Just Can't Stop It, over to Eric. And you can look for my brother Eric's video response on Monday on the Plastic Soundwave Cult. And I think that's all I have. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye.